What is going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mike Roach podcast. As you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, I have another distinct guest here, former member of Canada's national basketball team and current NBA analyst for Sportsnet. I have Sherman Hamilton on the show. I like to call him a bit of maybe the silent assassin. Sherman, how
That's
are you,
too
man?
nice. I'm great, my man. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it, man. It's been a
No,
while.
it is. It has been a while, man. It has been a while. And for those of you who don't know, Sherman did coach me a bit in high school. And let me tell you something, man. Seeing Sherman back up to the 3-point line and shoot threes like they were free throws. Just listen. Come on, Sherm. Why are you
Hey,
stunting on
man.
us like that in practice? Come
I,
on.
I'm not though. I'm not though. But that was a long time ago, and you were a young pup then. Anything impressed you guys back then, so
That is
I'll
true.
take it.
Impressive stuff. Okay. Now, Sherm, I do want to start here. Okay. So another team that was impressive after 19 games, the Raptors. They started off hot, 14-5, cooled off a little bit, lost 6 out of the last 7. They're now sitting at 15-11. So 26 games have gone by thus far in the season, Sherm. So where exactly are the Raptors right now on their journey?
I think they're a little bit ahead of the schedule when you think about what the expectations were surrounding this team. I mean, they're a very, very young team in terms of their experience, and they got off to that long winning streak, and we were all impressed by that. And you need those wins because the schedule firmed up after that, and it becomes a more difficult run. And I think the Raptors are feeling it now, but there's no question. I think they've done a great job taking advantage of their schedule. They've gotten better as the season's gone along. They've had to deal with injuries as most teams do. But we're seeing, some ability to formalize who they are as a unit, getting Brandon Ingram integrated into regular season games. Scotty Barnes figuring out as much impact as he can have, but he has to do it within a system and complement everybody. And I think he's doing a very good job of that. And we're seeing the other pieces come along. Emmanuel, before he was sick, he started to find his shot. He was making threes and making plays. I just think that this team is identifying and kind of pinpointing who they are. And their bench has had some great moments as well. So we're seeing some balance. I named a few guys, but you can go with Jamal, you can go with CMB. There's guys that are finding their footing, and I think it's a good thing now when the schedule changes, and we've seen it change. We've seen them have some losses and some consecutive losses. It's about figuring out how to right the ship, and this is a great time for them to have practice time, to be on the court, to work some kinks out, drill some things in, and reestablish some things that might have gotten lost in the shuffle when you're going and you're ripping game after game after game. So I think they're in a good place.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up, Sherm, because they played on Tuesday against the Knicks, and now they're off against until Monday when they go up against, I believe, the Miami Heat. Um, how does that time benefit them off aside from just the physical?
Well, I mean, there's some kind of bug going through that locker room. We're seeing a few players that are sick right now, so that obviously gives them some time to get better from that part. But I think mentally, one of the things I said after the last game was they were in this NBA Cup run and race, and it was great for them to be in. And I think the experience was great. The competition was good for them. Winning in those scenarios just helps a young team kind of figure out who they are. However, I think it's a now that it's finalized and they're not moving forward, they can get back to things. They can get back to things that they were trying to establish in regular season play and figuring out how to get better at the tenets of the game that they want to play with consistency. So there is a silver lining to losing that game and being able to focus on the regular season again. But the other thing is mentally, this break is necessary. You're in a tough stretch of the season. You've gotten some tough losses, and you got to find your footing again. And for a young team, that can be more difficult sometimes. And this time off, getting a chance to exhale, getting a chance to, get some good film work in, get back on the practice court and drill stuff again. And I think one thing about the repetition of practicing and drilling stuff for a young team is that it gets them into second nature mode. It means that they're doing it. They've done it in practice. When they hit the floor, they're not thinking too much. It's happening more naturally. And that's what practice time does. And in a season, we know this, Mike, they don't get a lot of practice time where they get consecutive days where they can just work stuff out without
Yes.
fatiguing themselves, but just to for coaches to really get their hands on players and get them in the gym at the same time and just continue to focus on things that they need to focus on. So to me, the timing couldn't have been better. I think this team needs it now. And you don't want me to talk about the physical aspect, but the physical aspect comes into play during this time as well.
Mhm. So right now, if you're Darko and the coaching staff, you're sitting at the round table. What are they conversing about? What are they emphasizing that needs to be done after this short break?
Well, I think one thing that they've really got to focus on, well, there's a few things, but defensively, they got to get back to that team that's creating turnovers and getting out in
Mhm.
transition and scoring in the open floor. Now we know RJ is a big part of their open floor and transition game, and he hasn't been around due to that knee injury. But they still have enough weapons that they can play transition basketball. But you got to get stops. You got to finish
Mhm.
the defensive possession with the rebound, and they've got to be better at that. And I think, their offense got stagnant over the last few games in terms of they have that pop, that point 0.5 seconds, you know, pass it, shoot it, dribble it, move the ball, whatever you're going to do, get it done quickly. We're seeing the ball stick a bit more. And that's not the way that this team is going to be successful. They have to move the basketball, they have to get that defense shifting from side to side to side. And they've got to really create driving lanes and create opportunities to condense the defense so that they can utilize their drive and kick game and get it out to the 3-point line. So, I would say the defensive side would be the first priority, and then getting that stop, and now commitment to running again and getting out in transition and scoring those easy buckets to me are things that they really need to focus on.
Now, Sherm, what do you think in regards to balance when it comes to making substitutions? Because it's not as easy as it looks, right? I mean, you're going down your bench, you're wondering who you have to play, but at the same time, when you need wins, games are close. You need your best guys out there at the same time, right? And you mentioned physical guys are fatigued, right? Games are coming down to the nitty gritty. You need Scotty, you need Bi, you need Jakob Pertl. But at the same time, you want to expand that bench. You also want to make sure that you know what you have available to you. So you got to give guys time. How hard is it as a coach to find balance here?
Well, I think Darko's first of all done a great job in terms of finding that balance. Because realistically, if you look at the organization, this is beyond this year that they're building for. So I know a lot of times fans and we in the media can get focused on a game to game scenario. There's a bigger picture here for this team. And to your point, one thing is health. You need guys healthy to be able to utilize your lineups the right way. And you mentioned a huge name, Jakob Pertl. When he's not in the lineup, this team is very, very different. And they need him to be as healthy as possible. But we know how backs can be, and he's working through that. But he's a key component to their defense and to their rebounding game. So, and offensively, he plays a big part as well. But to your point about utilizing the lineup, the balance is in making sure that you get these young guys the reps that they need. The Jacoby Waters, the Grady Dix, all these young players. The CMBs. These guys need these reps on the floor. They need to get out there. They need to play. Ochai Abaji. All these guys need to be on the floor. Jamal Shed. However, you've got to do it in a prudent way where your main guys are getting what they need, and then your young guys are earning their minutes. They're getting the opportunity based on how well they play, especially defensively. So the balance is there because we've seen Darko go 10 guys deep. And it's been
Mhm.
one of those things where, he's giving guys the opportunity. And if they take advantage of it, you'll see them get more minutes. But we've also seen, guys come out there and play well and then not see the floor again. So it's a tough balance. And Darko, coaches have to coach with feel. And I think Darko has done a very good job coaching with feel with, what's in front of him in mind, as well as the future, and trying to be organizationally responsible in terms of what the organization wants. And I think the balance at the end of the day, you want to win. As a coach, you take all those wins and losses with you wherever you go. But I think the responsibility in developing these young players and giving them the opportunities while giving, the Brandon Ingrams, he needs the reps coming back this season. Scotty needs the touches. When Emmanuel's on the floor, they need the touches. So it's I just have to tip my hat to Darko. It's not an easy position to be in, but I think he's doing an excellent job in terms of balancing that.
Sherm, can you please give us your take on Emmanuel quickly, please? Because he's had a pretty good start to the season. He's averaging 16 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. And I ask you that because the point guard position has changed over time in the NBA. It's not what it traditionally was. Now you see a bit more scoring type point guards, right? So, what do you think about his game thus far and what he's been able to contribute to the lineup? And then, secondly, kind of a loaded question: what do you think about the point guard position in totality overall now in the NBA game?
Yeah, well, I think Emmanuel found his shot, and his 3-point shot is a big part of his game. To your point, point guards are scoring now, and the 3-point line is a lot of where they do the damage. But Emmanuel has, I think, just kind of gotten better at that floater game, that in between game, the ability to not take it too deep to allow the bigs to have the advantage close to the basket, but just get that shot up early over the top with touch, and he's doing that much better. His 3-point shot, whether it be coming off of screen and rolls, whether it be in transition, and what I really like about what Darko has done is he's played Emmanuel with Jamal, and those 2 point guards really complement each other because Jamal can run the point, and Emmanuel quickly, although he's a point guard, has some two guard in him where he can set pin downs and flare screens, and he can come off a screen and rolls and be the second catch off of that and attack the defense or knock down the shot. I think that's really allowed Emmanuel quickly to really explore more options in his game. You talk about the 2 point guards. I love the contrasting styles. Jamal Shed comes off the bench and he's a pace changer. He comes out there, he
Mhm.
extends that defense, he puts a lot of pressure on the opposing ball handler. He's disruptive, he creates foul situations. And then offensively, we're seeing him make good decisions as well. Now, his 3-point shot has been hit or miss, but the
Mhm.
fact is, he's taking the shot, and they're good shots. He's not taking bad shots. And him too, getting to the basket a bit more physical, has a float game, and does some really good things. And we're seeing his leadership grow as well. The team is trusting him more. Darko is giving him more responsibilities. I just like the contrast in styles. And we've seen this before where, Kyle Lowry and Fred Van Vliet played on the floor at the same time. And they were as disruptive as you could be because they can both shoot it. They both defended at a high level, and that creates more confidence, especially in late game situations where your ball handling is shored up with two decision makers on the floor. So both these point guards, I think, have done a solid job, and it's good to see Emmanuel, especially him, get that 3-point shot going because it's such a big part of his game.
Now I'm hoping at some point, Sherm, the Raptors can find themselves another big off the bench, because I'm seeing Scotty Barnes having to do a lot. I mean, from an offensive and defensive standpoint, he's creating for his teammates. He has to score the basketball. He's pushing the ball, trying to push the tempo up the court as well. He's rebounding. He's doing everything out there. And when you see him having to guard some of these bigger power forwards and centers from the opposing team, sometimes I get worried that maybe he's getting a little worn down. Do you think at some point they're going to have to address this because of, Scotty just having to take on the brunt of, having to do just overall a lot out there?
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Scotty's so versatile. He's so big and strong that he can defend bigger bodies. He can defend those bruising big guys. And even though a guy like Brandon Ingram is taller, he's not as physically strong as Scotty, so you can't put him in those situations. And especially to your point, Mike, when you have Jakob Poeltl out of the lineup, you're really losing your size. And Scotty has to play an even bigger role guarding bigger bodies. And I don't think you want a steady dose of that. I don't think you want Scotty having to bang with bigger bodies all the time. You want him to do it intermittently when it's necessary. And because his team will switch, he will get caught on some big guys, but he can hold his own. And I think for Scotty, the thing about him that's really interesting is that he's had to adjust probably the most. A guy who handles the ball. You have a Brandon Ingram in there who is a scoring guy, a guy who's going to put the ball in the basket, end the clock, end the halves, end the games. And we've seen him do that. So that takes the ball out of Scotty's hands in those situations. but Scottie's still finding ways to put points on the board, still be a very good rebounder, still being a high assist guy, and just being an overall impact guy, which to me is the perfect role for him. But
Mhm.
yeah, size may be a thing, especially if Jakob's back continues to give him problems where he's missing games, you know, more frequently moving forward. You're going to need some protection in that front court. And, you know, CMB has done a very good job as a first year player, showing a lot of promise and developing, but he's got a ways to go, and that's okay for a rookie. So to your point, yeah, they might need to look in that direction to relieve some of that off of Scotty, but also a little bit of insurance because if Jakob's back's going to bother him, you're going to need somebody else to step in there,
Mhm.
and the size is something that every team can use that's skilled.
All right, Sherm, last question here. And I hate to have to do this, but I have to do this because
You
this is
don't
what was
really hate
reported.
to have to do it.
That's true. That's true because I'm sitting with the right guy right now and I want to hear your opinion on this. And the only reason I'm actually bringing this up, even though it's a hypothetical, is because it was reported by Shams Charania. And he is legit working for ESPN. Now, Shams Charania did report that the Raptors could be interested in trading for Anthony Davis. Okay. Now, if he's reporting this, obviously there is, I guess, some legitimacy to this. But putting on your GM hat here, why would Bobby Webster be interested in trading for the injury riddled Anthony Davis? And I can answer the first part because he's a hell
Go
of a
ahead.
player when he's healthy. That is clear. That
Absolutely.
is clear. But break it down a little bit for us, Sherm.
Well, just to extend on your point, there's no question a healthy Anthony Davis makes this team significantly better. And the other thing, when you look at the landscape in the Eastern Conference, this is a year to make a push. If you're
Mm,
going to try and get some success, the way this year is playing out, there's an opportunity here. And I know that going for it all right now is probably not the position that the Raptors are in, but the ability to get a player of that ilk, again, the caveat is when healthy,
mhm,
he can be a difference maker on a high level. And you can't tell me Anthony Davis on this team doesn't create a situation where this is a playoff team that is challenging to potentially get out the Eastern Conference with that guy on the team. So I could see it from that perspective, but it's a big roll of the dice. I mean, Anthony Davis has struggled to stay healthy his whole career. And even though he brings that championship pedigree, he brings that ability to score the ball, rebound the ball, defend the basket at a very high level, and really accelerate your team's growth and ability to win games in the now. It's a tough one to really buy into based on health. So if there's any truth to that, I can understand why Bobby Webster would be kind of kicking the bushes to see if that's possible. And what we talked about, I mean, it's kind of like the idea of having a young team that gets that vet on the floor that can take them to the next level, that can show them what it's like to be a team that competes every single night, and a team that becomes targeted and hunted now because of an Anthony Davis there. That accelerates growth and it gives a different perspective instead of being the young team that's jumping out and attacking people and kind of catching people by surprise. But that health issue is so big, and I haven't looked at the contract and the numbers for Anthony Davis moving forward. I don't know where he is in his deal. There could be some kind of, ability to use that contract moving forward to do something. I don't know, but just from what we're talking about, that guy struggles to stay healthy, and it becomes a difficult proposition to go through with that deal. But listen, Bobby Webster's way smarter than both of us when it comes to basketball and the business of basketball. So he sees something there, then I trust his decision.
NBA analyst for Sportsnet. I like to call him Sherman, the silent assassin Hamilton. Sherman, appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this.
My man, Mike, keep doing great things, brother.
This is the Mike Roach Podcast. Until next time, peace.